So the first domain is on security and risk management. That is one of the first domain, and as I told you previously as well, that is one of the very important domain for our CISSP examination. And it will actually provide you the well foundation, specifically if you are new in the information security as well. Okay, so let's start. So there are some key things which we need to understand from this particular section and try to understand their total of 4 chapters which is accumulated in this domain. First is the governance through principle and policies. Second, personal security and risk management, and this is where exactly we will try to understand how do we do the risk calculation. Third is the business continuity. And then the fourth we have is relevant law. Based on that, you have to actually go for the implementation of control. And as I told that the same means after this domain, we will be starting the 7th domain, which is the extension of the same domain. Now that we will discuss later what exactly the part of it. But try to understand. And that is the same thing. So security governance through principle and policy. That is the first topic we will start today. Now, first thing, let me understand why exactly we require security. I mean, what is the need of security? There are multiple ways to interpret the security control and implementation of the security there. But what exactly we want from the security?
Is basically the two-step process. First, that you need to pass the examination. Now, this is one of the major step which definitely you are getting. Okay, guys, please confirm you are able to see my whiteboard, right?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So, wow, yeah. And the second step we have here, it means apart from passing the examination, the another important thing which we have to take care is to get endorsed, right? So what do you mean by endorsement? So here you need to prove that you have the necessary experience in the information security domains. Remember guys, in CISSP examination, there are total of 8 different domains we have. That means you will be tested against these 8 different domains only. Right? Now, what is this 8 domain and what are the content we have in this 8 domain? I will be covering soon. But one important thing that when you attempt the examination, when you pass the examination, after that, you need to prove your experience, right? You need to prove your experience in any 2 of the domain out of 8, right? Now remember, some of the domain is in the networking, some domain is in risk management side, some domain is in assessment side, some domain is in software development side. So IC Square also understand that none of the guys actually mostly having all the experience. I mean, they might not have all the experience in different domains. Okay, but if you have experience in any 2 of the domain as well, okay, that is sufficient for getting the certification. So after passing the examination, you have to prove that you have the necessary experience in any 2 of the domain out of 8, which we will be discussing in our session. Right, and you will select what 2 domains you actually have the experience. Right, now this experience, this 2 domain experience, at least remember, if you have more than 2 domains experience as well, that one too you can prove. But this experience total cumulative should be 5 years. It means at least they are looking for the 5 year of experience. But there is a possibility that you are missing by 1 year. In such case, you may get 1 year of waiver if you have some security certification. Like if you have CEH, if you have security analyst, if you have a networking certification as well. So there are some list of certification which is already published in the IC Square website. Okay, which you can use it as a reference, right? Which you can use it as a reference for doing the same. So you must have 5 years of experience. Out of 1 year of waiver up you can get, and that to claim that waiver up, definitely you have to uh, submit the information, necessary information through which you can say that yes, I have the necessary experience here, right? So that is all about the examination. So make sure that you first pass the examination, then you need to prove the experience in any 2 of the domain out of 8. Now what is those 8 domains and what exactly we have here? Now for that you can also check the official documentation present on this ISSQR website. In fact, let me show you the same. Now this is the official page. I have on my system, and let me share you this link as well, so you can also go through when you get some time. Okay. Now already mentioned what it is mentioned there what exactly the CISSP examination is all about. Okay, and these are the 8 domains I'm actually discussing about. Right. So we have first domain, security and risk management. Now this is one of the very important domain you all have, guys. Right. Now it is the first domain and very important domain. Maximum number of question is going to be asked from here only. But it is not only about the number of questions from this domain. It is the perspective which is bringing you here to understand how exactly you have to interpret any of the question. Right. Normally, whenever we select a control, now I'm just talking about from the practitioner side. If I'm the implementer, so from the practitioners, if you ask any question, which control to suggest, they will simply check the overall, the outcome which a particular controller provide, and they will tell you the controls which is best fits that requirement. Right. I mean, if I'm looking for intrusion prevention, simply a certain product might be suggested there. But what this product is bringing value to the organization, we might not be thinking about that. Okay. And what is the overall cost? Okay, is that cost is basically fitting my requirement? I mean, I may be losing $1,000 if I don't implement the control, and to to implement the control, I'm purchasing a control which might be costing me more than $3,000. So it doesn't make sense that I'm spending money more than what exactly I'm losing, right? So that cost and benefit analysis is actually one of the very important thing which we need to understand here, and definitely that is what the value this particular domain is actually going to brings in. So we need to change our perspective that when you're selecting a control, it is not only about the the end objective it is producing. Definitely that is one of the most important thing, but at the same time we have to understand that at the end of the day the funding will be done by the senior managements there. They will be actually accepting, but again you have to present the total business case that why exactly that control is required, what is the requirement of that control. These things you need to convey to them, right? And that is where this domain is going to comes into the picture. So coming to one more important thing, that for that I'm referencing the ISIS squared book, and that is from CIBEX publication. Okay, cool. So as I told that there are some key things which we have to actually take care when we are going for the examination. Now some more important point, as I told that there are total of 8 domains we have, but when we are following up the CIBEX publication book, in CIBEX publication book is basically arranged in a different part. So when you follow the CIBEX publication book, the first 4 chapter, okay, is actually belongs to domain number first. So what is domain number first? It is the security and risk management. And in the security and risk management, the first four chapter actually belongs to the same. So chapter number 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? These are basically how exactly it is arranged. Similarly, when you are going for the asset security, which is the second domain, now for that we have only one chapter dedicated there. Okay, it means chapter number 5. When you go for the third domain, which is security architecture and engineering, now this is one of the longest domain we have. Right now, why I'm saying that there are lots of content we have here which needs to be digested, and one of the very important content from the examination perspective is the cryptography. Remember, cryptography is one of the major control nowadays we implement, not only in our traditional infrastructure but also in the cloud, right? So in the security architect and engineering domain, we will be discussing on the different set of encryption options. Then we will discuss the security model, and then we will be discussing on the physical security as well. There is one more important thing we have from the same domain, that is on the hardware security. I mean, talking about hard disk, RAM, ROM. So those needs to be also secured, right? So even that one too, we will be checking it out here. So we have the same domain. So we have security architect and engineering. This is the third domain. The fourth domain, which is on communication and network security. So I had seen that in this meeting, we have networking as mode. So for you, this domain might not be that much of a tougher one, because it is very straightforward domain. And again, the kind of question they will ask you from the examination is also very much straightforward. Yes, but sometime you may need to decide the best option according to the scenario there. Okay. Now there are two chapters which is for the same in the CyBEX. So 5 chapters for the security architect and engineering in our book, 2 chapter for communication and network security. Next 2 chapter is on identity and access management. Again, important domain, because identity security is one of the important aspect of any of the organization. If I know I'm not able to secure the identity, definitely it is going to create a major issue for us here, right? Then we will be discussing on the security assessment and testing. Now this is the another key important domain we have, although have only one chapter, but very importantly, that what are the tools we will be using for doing the assessment and testing when it comes to do the audit on the organization. So we may need to do the VAPT, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So in the vulnerability assessment, we are trying to find the vulnerabilities in the system, and in case of penetration testing, we will try to do the pen testing to check how much severe that vulnerability is for the organization. So that one we will try to understand and digest in our section here. Next domain. Now remember, security assessment and testing is having only one chapter in our CyBEX book. Next domain in security operation. Now security operation is the extension of the first domain only. So security and risk management, and the extension of the same domain is security operations. Now because it is the extension of the same domain, so instead of dedicating more time on the same is not going to be useful for us as well. To make sure that I'm discussing in one go, after this domain I will be going to start the security operations, which is the domain number 7, having 4 chapters total of, and major discussion we will do here. One is security operations within organization, another is incident management, another is disaster recovery professionals. I mean, how do we do the disaster recovery, right? So these are some of the, and then there is one more chapter, and that is the ethics, which in the cybersecurity world we need to actually follow up, right? So these are some of the important point we will discuss. It means just after the security and risk management, I will discuss on the key incidents and the disaster recovery tools which is available around us. And finally, the last domain we have is software development security. Now 2 chapters here. Software development security will be discussing on the best practices which we need to follow to develop any application. So remember, here we are not going to focus on how do we develop the application, but we will try to discuss that whenever you develop any application, what are the major frameworks you need to implement and integrate there, right? Frameworks basically going to provide you the structure and guideline. Right. So that is the important goal of any framework. It will provide you the structure and guideline to implement the control. So the same thing we will check. And then multiple different kind of risk which in your organization you may face there when you're developing any application. So even that control, so we'll also try to discuss here in the software development and security. So overall, this is what the 8 domains we have, which we will be discussing in our CISSP, right? And one important thing, because there are lots of content in the book, so I will be discussing about some of the core component which you need to make sure that you are recognizing it for your examination preparation and definitely for your job role as well there. Okay. So any question guys for so far from this information what I have passed so far? Anything confusing from the examination point of view? Should I take it no confusion?
I have one question.
It's fine. You
It's
can go
nothing
to that.
like with the domain. So you
Mhm.
said that after the pass the exam and we need to prove our experience. So how we need to submit
Huh. So that is the way.
experience or what is that? How it will be?
So yeah, great. So it's a valid question. Like if you pass the examination and if I need to prove the experience, okay, how exactly we can do that? I mean, what are the information we need to submit to IC squad so they understand that I have the necessary experience, right? So for that, see, there are two ways for that. First, if you know already some professional guys, I mean, let's suppose you know me. Okay. So in such case, what you'll do, you will actually going to select me as your endorser. Okay. In such case, you require my IC square ID and my last name, right? So after giving that information, there is a tool available at IC square portal, which is used to do the endorsement. Right? So in the IC square portal, after the examination, that portal will be highlighted for you. You need to submit your necessary information, and when it comes to information you can simply say that okay, I have the necessary experience, and for that these are the documentations which you can utilize. Like you can on the first go you can submit your CV as well. That is also enough for the same. But let's suppose that you can actually submit your the joining letters or the relieving letters from the previous organization. So even that one too can be utilized as a proof of evidence, right? So that one you can do. Otherwise you just submit the CV, and might be to support that might be some additional information or the additional documentation you may submit it there. Now that one will go to your endorser after the submit. Like let's suppose you had chosen me as endorser, so it will come to me. I will verify each of them, and for that might be I'm going to write mail to your employer. They will confirm via mail, and the same information I will be utilizing for completing your endorsement process. So after the verification, I will complete the endorsement. I will submit my report to IC Square, and IC Square will publish the certification for you. Now, if you don't know any professional guy, in such case, you can directly reach to IC Square as well, and you can tell them to do the endorsement. Right? So in such case, if you don't know any guy, and in such case, IC Square will do the further investigation against your profile. Now, even if you know any professional guy and you had told them to do the endorsement for you, there is a possibility that your profile got randomly selected for the further investigation. Now, again, it is not happening so frequently, but there is a chance that your profile has selected randomly as a for the further auditing. And in such case, IC Square will do the audit against your profile, will verify, and then only they will issue the certification. So this is how exactly it works. So coming to your question, a normal CV can also help, where you can actually list all of your experience and against which domain you are actually proving your experience. Even if you can provide this information, that is also very useful. I hope you got the answer.
Yes.
Also,
You.
just to add to that, I know that if you pass the exam,
Mhm.
you can. Do they give you 6 years? To if you've not got the experience, they give you 6 years to build the experience after the exam and submit within that 6 years?
Yes. So if you don't have the experience, in such case, what will happen? Then you can actually first go for the associate certification. So remember there are two certification we have here: associate level and professional level. In professional you have to prove your experience, but in case of associate you don't. So if you're going for associate level, it means you already know that you don't have any experience for now. And in such case, ISS Square will provide you total of 6 years to gain the necessary experience. Okay, so you come after 6 years, provide the necessary information to ISS Square, and then they will issue the certification to you as well. But for that, if you don't have the experience, it means if you're not looking for professional certification. But remember, mostly organizations are looking for professional guys there. Specifically, if you're looking to join some organization based on your uh, you're trying to switch to some organization. In such case, definitely you may require the professional certification. Otherwise, you can apply for associate certification as well. Okay. Okay, cool. So any further question, guys, if you have?
Yes, I do. On a related topic, I believe, right? The Cybex book is like 1,100 pages. So I'm not sure, or maybe I need to ask you, over the course of the training, will you give us areas or chapters within the book that we need to read, or we need to read the book end to end, basically? That's my question.
No, definitely. So no, it doesn't make sense to actually to read entire book. But yes, some of the core point which we need to focus on, I will be focusing on for each of the domains. So when I will start the discussion, I will let you know that what are the area you need to focus on when it comes to examination. Plus, there are some key questions I have from the recently asked examination. So definitely that one will also help you to understand the pattern of the question, and it will help you to appear in the examination as well. Okay. But if you're deciding to go through the entire book, even that one too is very good. Means uh, option. It will definitely help you to improve your knowledge and skills in the cyber security. I mean, that is also not a big, uh, you know, not a bad deal. Yeah.
Also, if you there's a package on Amazon at the minute. If you get that reference book and the official exam guide, the exam preparation book, which is really good actually. You get
Which one?
access the official IC squared exam preparation one. There's this cyber book of knowledge, and there's an exam prep book. If you get that one, it gives you, I think it's not a lot, it's like $50. It gives you access to the official IC squared exam dumps. So you get 900 questions, and you get pre-built flashcards as well. Yeah, so that's definitely, they're really useful study guides, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is okay. Means it's totally your call whether you want to purchase any material, books or something like that. It's totally your call. But I will not suggest you to purchase anything, because see, the thing is, no any examination dumps will actually give you the guarantee, right? The only thing is I will recommend you to practice more and more. So I will give you the sufficient number of questions which will help you to prepare the examination. So if you are looking for only 1,000 questions, even that one too I can provide you. But if you're looking for more than 1,000 questions, even that one too I will provide you, which will definitely help you to prepare for the examination there. Now there is a website also. So after completing few sessions, I will recommend you to go to that website. Although it is a paid website, but again the cost is very minimal. It is $7 only, and you will get the lifetime membership of that website. Now the good thing with that the website is the professionals like us is actually actively participating in the questions there. So let's suppose I done the question and there's some question in my mind I have. I actually participate and post the questions there only, right? And that same, and because of that, now the number of questions which I had seen last time in that list is more than 2000. And again, believe me guys, the questions are very much accurate because they actually came in the examination. I had actually seen many of my participant has actually taken the help of that website. The cool thing of that website is that it's not like some experts are actually giving the answer there. It is like us only participating, debating on the responses, and you might see that the highest number of people has given vote to a certain option there, and what was the reason that that discussion also is there. So I will share you the link of that website. Definitely that website will help you. But apart from that, see, the 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 point is even ISIS square cannot provide you the official exam dumps, right? And that is one of the reason I'm saying that you may purchase, but may not be very much useful for you there, right? So it's totally your call if you wanted to go for the same. But I will provide you the sufficient number of questions, so I don't think it is actually required. Okay, coming to the examination questions there. So recently there are some changes happened there, guys. And after the changes, one important thing which you need to understand that now the examination duration, previously it was actually of 3-hour examination. Now let me just show you that. So previously it was for the 3-hour examination. Now it has been actually increased to 4-hour, right? So length of examination is now is 4-hour. And the number of questions you will be facing in the examination is minimum 125, right? And maximum 175. So there is a possibility that you attempted 125 question and you got necessary 700 points to pass the examination. You don't need to actually proceed further, right? And in that case, examination stop and you may take your response from the examination center. So remember in the screen, they don't show any result. You have to get the printed paper after the examination and there only they had declared your outcome. Okay. So in minimum number of question 125, you may pass the examination, or there might be a possibility that you may reach up to 175. And if you get the 70%, then you will pass the examination. I mean, total of 700 points you have to obtain to pass the examination. So minimum number of questions you are going to face is 125, and maximum number of questions you will be facing is 175. There is a possibility that your examination is stop at 125, or there is a possibility that your examination is stop in between 125 to 175 as well, right? But remember one important thing: if your examination stop in between or at 125, it not always mean that you pass the examination. There is a possibility that you may not able to succeed the examination and you may have to work hard. Means some of the domain you may have to work hard there, right? So in such case, that information will be printed onto the paper. You can see that in which domain you need to work hard and get the examination result after that. So over and all, previously the number of questions was 150 maximum, but now it has increased to 175. Previously the number of duration was 3 hour, but now it is moved to 4 hour of examination there. So I believe they had actually increased 25 question, and for that they had provided you 1 more hour, so that is sufficiently enough. But the only thing is this duration, that 4 hour of sitting is actually going to be problematic. You may take some break as well in between. So again, definitely it is the testing center who can actually allow you for the same. Now this is the domain list, and I already told that maximum of questions you will be getting it from the first domain itself, security and risk management. So 15% of the weightage is actually there from the first domain. But apart from that, we have other domains, and you can see some equivalence here with architecture, engineering, communication, and network security and IAM. It means if these 4 domain and including security operations is good, so if you're good in that, so maximum of chances are that you will definitely pass the examination there. And because of the weightage, I'm actually saying. But apart from that, SS security is having 10% of the domain weightage, 12% of the weightage is on the assessment and testing. Right? And then another one is the software development security, 11% of the weightage for the examination. Right? So this is about the weightage, and you have to actually create a strategy that which strategy you will be selecting for cracking the examination. You might be going with the weightage itself, 15% of the weightage. That one too is not a bad idea. You can actually select the same for your preparation, right? Another thing is CISSP recently, for the ICS score I'm talking about, recently they started with one online based examination as well. And apart from that, if you are a non-English user, so remember this is basically for the English user. So if you are giving examination in English language, in such case this duration is. But if you are a non-English user and if you're trying to do the examination there, or if you are trying to attempt the examination online. Now remember, online examination is not easily available. I mean, it is not frequently available, not easily, I can say. So what do you mean by this frequently? Frequently means from the last 2 years I had seen, specifically because of this pandemic. So from the last 2 years, they started they started doing the testing of online examination. Means you can do your examination from your home as well. For that, you require a quiet room with a stable internet connection, and then you can do the examination. So if you're doing online or if you're a non-English user, in such case, this information is for you. So the examination length is going to be of 6 hours in such case. And the maximum number of items you will be facing is 250. Okay. And again, here there is no any minimum. It means the examination will not stop in between. You have to attempt all the 250 questions within 6 hours. Right. Again, it is going to be multiple choice question only. Some question you may get mix and match where you may have to match the correct options in front of the correct domain. And again, same 700 points you have to obtain out of 1000 points to pass the examination. This examination is available in Chinese, German, Korean, Japanese, and Spanish. So if you are the native user for these languages, in such case, you can go for the 6-hour examination. Although I will not recommend, because it's actually sitting for 6 hours even is actually going to create a very problem there. You may not able to concentrate for that much of duration. Okay. Now, if you see here that the weightage is same exactly, so there is no any such changes in the weightage. So the same information we can use it here as well. And then definitely the domain and the different information about the subject. Now that one I'm not going to take time here because we are all going to start the same. So it's not making sense to discuss the same. And you can download it and at your local system. I already provided you the link. So you download and just go through the kind of content you need to focus it on from each of the domain there. Okay. Great. So this is what some of the limited information I need to pass before I start any of the domains. Very much useful for you. Right. So now if you just let me know if you have any question from what we had discussed. Otherwise, I'm okay to start my first domain for the day. In the meantime, I'm actually going to transfer this meeting to my another device because I am actually facing slight issue with my new system here. So just in the meantime, guys, we can take a small break here of 10 minutes to refresh ourselves so we can come back and start our discussion. So is it okay for you all?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So it's a 10-minute of break, guys. Let me just transfer the meeting on my another device quickly.
Yeah, so I hope I'm still audible for you, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now I'm actually in my another device. So guys, what I'll do, I'm going to share my screen for a break timer, or you can just start the break here. For the 10-minute, we will be taking a break here. And after that, we will start our first domain here. So take a break of 10 minutes and then come back. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, welcome back. I hope I'm audible for you all. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's move on and start our first domain there. Okay. Now, let me just share my slide as well here. Okay, so the first domain is on security and risk management. That is one of the first domain, and as I told you previously as well, that is one of the very important domain for our CISSP examination. And it will actually provide you the well foundation, specifically if you are new in the information security as well. Okay, so let's start. So there are some key things which we need to understand from this particular section and try to understand their total of 4 chapters which is accumulated in this domain. First is the governance through principle and policies. Second, personal security and risk management, and this is where exactly we will try to understand how do we do the risk calculation. Third is the business continuity, and then the fourth we have is relevant law. Based on that, you have to actually go for the implementation of control. And as I told that the same means after this domain, we will be starting the seventh domain, which is the extension of the same domain. Now that we will discuss later what exactly the part of it. But try to understand. And that is the same thing. So security governance through principle and policy. That is the first topic we will start today. Now, first thing, let me understand why exactly we require security. I mean, what is the need of security? There are multiple way to interpret the security control and implementation of the security there. But what exactly we want from the security? Remember, there are different key pillars we have for the security, which definitely you are actually looking at. Right? Remember, securities is important. Definitely, security is important. As we may understand already based on that communication which we are doing on a daily basis, based on the things which we are doing on a daily basis. But like you must be receiving some mail, you must be sending some mail, you must be browsing the internet websites, right? So the multiple activity nowadays we do. We order food, we order vehicle, we communicate. So actually we are surrounded with lots of different applications around us. There is complete chance that at some point of time we done some mistake, we had did some mistake, right? And that mistake is actually going to leads to the compromise of the sensitive information which belongs to us or might be belongs to the organization, right? See, at the end of the day, our objective from the security is basically to make sure that we create a secure environment where we can provide the proper privacy to our information. So at the end of the day, security is important because it will help you to ensure that you and the organization is able to you know do the business securely. Organization is able to exist and operate in case if any kind of threat, even if it is present in the environment. Remember, security, most of the time we are actually thinking about a kind of control which will help us to manage the risk. That is correct. Definitely, security goal is basically to manage the risk. But try to understand that security should be viewed as an element of business management, not only an IT concern area, right? Yeah, definitely you are implementing security because you have some concerns related in IT, related to IT, right? And you want to tackle that concern area. Security is actually going to play their picture there only. So information security or security is basically one of the major element through which you are trying to enhance the overall operational activity of the organization by implementing necessary care on the core element of the organization. Right? To understand this relationship of the security and the kind of risk which we are trying to tackle here. So for that to understand, think about from the very beginning here, right? Why exactly we require security. So can I say that we require security because there are some critical asset we are preserving? Yes. Can we say like that? So we have some critical asset in our organization, right? Or some asset in an organization which is helping your organization to progress, which is helping your organization to move on, right? And this could be anything, right? This could be an expensive server which you had purchased for the organization to implement. Like you might be offering web service, email service using the server. So this could be one of the asset. This asset could be some networking device like routers, some security device like firewalls, right? So that could be one of the asset for the organization, or this could be one of the personnel in the organization, right? This personnel who's actually having good understanding how the server and router needs to be configured. So it might be if he's not present today, I'm not able to manage these services properly for my organization. So can we say here now that for the asset, can we say that anything which is valuable for an organization or for the organization goal, that is the asset for the organization. So anything which is valuable for the organization goal, for the organization objective, is the asset for the organization. Now, problem here is that if you have some asset, that then not only you are interested to utilize that asset, your competitors, attackers are also interested to utilize these assets. But this time not to provide you the benefit, but to give you harm, to provide some damage. See, when you establish when you purchase such controls, when you purchase such assets, your objective is to achieve the goal of the organization on time, right? But what attacker will do, they will try to compromise this asset. So you may take some time to repair this asset, and in the meantime, your goal, the achievement of goal is actually going to be delayed, or it might be you're not able to achieve. Right. This is what the motive of attacker. And again, there could be different motive of the attacker. They could be funded by the different organization to just give you harm. Right. The attacker might be just here for the fun. So they might be experimenting some of their tools to check whether it is working or not. And in the meantime, your server is crashed. Right. So there could be anything. But what we need to understand that this asset can be compromised if this asset is having certain vulnerability. If this asset is having certain loophole, it means we need to check what exactly the loophole this asset is having, vulnerabilities this particular asset is having. Like we can simply take an example here. You might be using some operating system, right? Like it could be Windows based or Linux based, or it could be anything, right? So if you're using such operating system, there might be possibility that operating system is vulnerable for the virus attack, right? So why exactly it is vulnerable for the virus attack? Because it is not having any antivirus control available. They don't have any control available. And again, there could be something else as well, like it is sensitive and some files are actually is easy to grab the viruses and others. But all in all, we need to understand that a certain asset may have some vulnerability, and that is the reason attacker is able to compromise. Why attacker is able to compromise using this vulnerability? Because against this vulnerability, there are some codes available which will help attacker to take benefit of this vulnerability. That is actually called as exploit. So in a technical term, we use a term that is called exploit. So there's some piece of code available which will help you to take the benefit of vulnerability. And after taking the benefit of vulnerability, attacker will able to compromise or take control over your asset. Right? Think about a situation that your server is compromised because of the vulnerability. What they can do? So let's suppose this server is running with mail services. It means now your mail flow is compromised. And because of that, all messages attacker can see very easily. Definitely, it is one of the big risks because you might be sending some critical data about the organization. And if it is compromised, definitely it's a major risk. So there is an exploit which will take benefit of vulnerability, and then only the asset is going to be at risk. So it can be said that because of the vulnerability and exploit, asset is at risk. So yes, we can say. In fact, this is actually going to provide the definition of the risk itself. See, we are actually defining risk in a way like risk is the possibility of a certain event or of a certain exploit will be taking benefit of vulnerability, which will take them to take control over the asset. So we can simply define risk as a combination of vulnerability. And what is this exploit is all about? So this exploit is a piece of code, right? Which is written by some attacker or might be some user. So can we say that this piece of code is basically called, for me, it is a threat? Yes, it is a threat, because if this piece of code available, then only attacker will take benefit of this vulnerability. So risk is basically defined as a combination of vulnerability and threat. That's it. That is the simple definition of the risk we generally utilize there. Otherwise, you can also use some long string of definition as well. Risk is the possibility of a certain event, taking control of the asset. Simple. So remember, risk is all about the possibility of a certain event, which will compromise your asset of the organization. But on a very simple note, we can define risk as the combination of vulnerability and threat. Now, eliminate any one of the component from there. Okay. So let's suppose that we have a vulnerability, but there is no any threat available. Right. So can my asset will be compromised? No, because to compromise the asset, not only the vulnerability is sufficient, but there should be something available so attacker can take benefit of that vulnerability. Right. Now, if it is not available, then attacker have to wait for that one to get created first, or attacker itself is going to create that. Definitely in both of the cases is going to take some time. Right. So this is the very important point which we need to understand, that risk is the combination of vulnerability and threat. But whether we need to take action now or I'm going to wait for some time, it totally depends on the impact of that particular vulnerability. So when we are actually using this risk here, there is one more combination, one more point we can actually combine here, and that is impact. Right? Impact. So risk is the combination of vulnerability and threat, definitely. But if you combine here impact as well. So now impact is basically helping you to prioritize whether right now we need to take some action or this risk may wait for some time before we do something. I mean, before we implement any control. Now, why exactly? Because there is a complete possibility that you this risk is not severe for the organization, right? And if it is not severe, which is definitely I'm defining it through this impact term. So if it is not severe, then it might wait. Remember, we don't have all the money in the world for implement control, right? We have limited budget and we need to work around that budget only. I cannot means spend all of my money just implementing the security control. Right. So in this case, in such case, what we should do, we should have to prioritize. But so there might be a possibility that in your organization you are finding multiple risks there. Risk one, risk two, risk three. Now you have to prioritize which risk needs to be mitigated first and which risk can wait for some time. Might be I'm going to wait for some more funding and then after I will implement the control accordingly there. And in the meantime, I will do something, some adjustment in my security posture so I can actually, reduce that risk. I will discuss on that point, but for now, try to understand it is the impact which will define the priority, whether we need to implement control now or it is going to wait for some more time. Right? That is what exactly the important thing which we need to understand. So when you select this criteria as well, impact, it means now you know that the control can be implemented now or it is going to wait for some time. So impact will help you to prioritize the risk and the necessary control which we need to implement to mitigate it. That okay. All in all, to reduce this possibility, I mean, either to remove the vulnerability. So here to reduce the risk, what you will do, either you are going to remove this vulnerability or you will do something to take care of this exploit. See, try to understand. If you know that there is a certain malware which is going to impact my asset, in such case, what you will do? Either you are going to treat this malware by implementing necessary tool like antivirus or something, or you will fix this vulnerability, right? If any one of them is basically fixed, then your risk will be reduced. It means to remove the risk or to suppress the risk, what we should do, either we fix the vulnerability or we do something for the exploit. That is where the security is actually going to comes into the picture. Now the role of security is to make sure either we are going to treat this exploit or we are going to fix this issue. Again, multiple terms we actually utilize for this in the security world. One of the most common term you might be utilizing from the very long time is called as security hardening, right? Security hardening is what? So security hardening is basically a process which will make sure that I am taking all the necessary care to improve the security posture of my information management system, like mail server. I will be taking all necessary care to make sure that my mail server is not going to be attacked. Might be you are going to form a isolated zone in the network. You will be implementing antivirus, intrusion detection, firewall in front of them. But yeah, definitely we need to first understand what exactly the issue we are resolving. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what is the issue we are resolving, no matter how many control you're implementing, risk is still there. It's very much important that we do some sort of risk analysis. And for that, you must know the number of threat you are actually trying to resolve and the kind of vulnerability you are trying to fix. So if you have these prerequisites, these information with you, it will help you to focus on a certain direction. And that is what exactly we require within security world. We require a proper direction, proper channel, which will help us to improve the security posture. So no matter whether you're fixing vulnerability exploit, you're actually taking the help of what? Security control. Now, when you're coming to the security, remember the end goal of security or the objective of security for us is basically to either work on confidentiality or improve the integrity or improve the availability. Now try to understand any component you are implementing within security. There is a certain objective of that. Security is a very broad term. I mean, if someone is telling me to improve the security for my organization, it is a very vague term and I cannot do that unless I have some direction with me. So I have to ask multiple questions to the stakeholder who's actually looking to improve the security. I have to understand what exactly threat they are facing. What is the issue which they are trying to fix with the help of security? So security control is actually helping you to either work on the confidentiality or integrity or availability. But where exactly our major focus is, that one we need to understand. So the security objective is to improve the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So that is the end objective of the security. And definitely each of them is basically having their own meaning. Like if I'm going for the confidentiality, what is the use of confidentiality here? The use of confidentiality is to make sure that only the authorized user is able to access my information or information management system. So I may have certain piece of information with me. Let's suppose I actually have some sensitive information about my customers, right? If it is leaked, then it might create a problem for my organization. Now, in such case, I have to make sure that I'm taking necessary confidentiality care against the information, so it may not go into compromise. Only the authorized users are able to access it. So goal of confidentiality is to prevent or minimize the unauthorized access over the data. That is why exactly we are implementing the confidentiality control. So it is used to prevent disclosure. We have to make sure that only authorized user is able to access the information. Unauthorized should be prevented. Similarly, if you are focusing on integrity, the objective of integrity is to make sure that only authorized changes are accepted over the information or information management system. See, you don't want that one of your server is changed by the user and which is not authorized changes. They some of the user in your organization had done some unapproved installation, and this installation could be some malware. Some might be that is only a software only, but that software is coming with some malware. So in your organization, you only required approved changes in the information system or a certain information. Think about a document where some changes has been done without being permitted by the approving authority. What will happen? In such case, you are doing processing based on the information what you have. But because the information is changed, the impact over the organization can be totally different what you're expecting based on the information. I mean, take an example that there is a HR data, and in that HR data, we have some salary information about the employees. Now, this information has been changed. right? Now HR is processing the salary based on the information what he have in this documentation, but because it has changed, so definitely we are not expecting the same outcome, right? Which here can be done. What we want with the help of integrity control, that we should do authorized changes over the information only. Remember, you might be authorized to access the information, but you might not be authorized to change the information. Even if you're authorized to change the information, there is a proper authorization channel given there, and that channel you should be following. If you are skipping that channel, it means again you are doing some unauthorized changes only. And most of the organization is actually going to take this particular things very seriously. It's actually kind of offense without, even if you have the authorization to change, but because that is not going through the authorized channel, it is going to create a big risk for the organization, right? But integrity is not only about the the changes control, but also to detect those changes. So I'm not only used to make sure that only authorized changes can be done, but I have to make sure that I can detect whether that changes has been done or not. And if it is changed, I may not able to process the information. Right. So we need to not only stop the changes to be done from the unauthorized user, but also we need to detect the changes. And for that, you are implementing the integrity control. Right. So can you think about some confidentiality controls, guys? Any examples of the confidentiality control which is coming at your mind? Any one of you?
Confidentiality, for example, recent exchange vulnerability, no? That ECP.
Mhm.
So that exploitations will be allowed to access the users' mailboxes, mailbox
Okay.
access.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you're saying that because of a threat detected, there is a vulnerability detected, and there is
Yes.
a threat available that because of that information can be accessed without any permission,
Yes.
which is definitely an example of confidentiality. So guys, this example is basically because users or attackers is able to bypass the ACL, access control, right? Remember, you are authorized to access your mailboxes, but because of that exploit, because of that attack, attacker is able to bypass this ACL, access control, and definitely it will help them to compromise. So to improve confidentiality, one of the example can be said that ACL, I'm not saying that it is the only example. Yeah, we have some improved examples as well, but ACL is one of the most basic control we implement in our system. Yeah, any another examples which you can think about?
Any encryption for the devices where we store the personal information.
Correct. Encryption, although, yeah, one of the very perfect example of the confidentiality, because if when you implement the encryption, only the authorized user who is having the encryption key can access your information. So this is the another example of confidentiality control. I can see there is example given here by Ben is DLP, data loss prevention. Yeah. Yes, we can take data loss prevention tool also will help us to detect the information which is passing to the internet, which is might be not authorized to go over that. And in such case, it will be detected and then prevented as well. So DLP also as an example we can take. Yeah, perfect. Ben,
Marking as well. Marking the, categorizing the information.
marking, see, I'm actually looking for some control which can prevent you from, making in uh, confidentiality leakage, right? When you are doing the marking, so when you're saying marking, you must be talking about the some kind of marking you place onto the documentation so you can identify whether it is a confidential or not, and based on that you take some certain action. So like take what Ben is basically indicating is like take an example of DLP. How DLP decide whether this is a confidential information or not, or whether I need to pass it over the internet or I need to stop it here on my organization premises. So it actually based on the some of the marking, right? Now in our latest exchange tools, or take an example of Office 365 nowadays you use, they have some tools through which you can do the marking with the help of policy based on some keyword detected. But remember, guys, this marking will not help you to stop the, making the changes, right? Yes, it will help you to detect, and based on some other control will be implemented to do the same. Right? So you can say it is going to help you, but not exactly is a confidentiality based control. Right? We'll discuss on more on that. It's just on the startup of the control here. So I'm just putting it, etc. There are lots of examples actually if you have. Coming to the integrity control. So remember, guys, ACL will also help you to make sure that only authorized changes can be done, right? Because with the help of ACL only you can decide who can do the change and who cannot do the change, right? But when it comes to the detection of the change, okay, any example, guys, which is coming to your mind? How can we detect the changes in the information?
Any make a checker process exist in that if I was just CI approval based, something like that.
I didn't got your point.
Any make a checker process which we can use in the tool which we are utilizing for
Maker checker.
Maker and checker, you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
such case, you're actually talking about the, the privilege segregation you're saying. Means
Correct.
maker should not be the checker.
Checker.
So,
Correct.
so if I'm defining something, if I'm controlling something, I should not be the auditor. There should be different person who will be actually. You are actually giving an example of separation of duty. So yes, is one of the management control we can say. With the help of audit, we can do the detection. So audit, yeah, is an example of detection. But when it comes to the information changes, Ben has actually given an example here, which is a perfect example is hashing. Hashing is the mechanism or the tool through which you can put some hashes over the information. Now, how exactly it works? Let's suppose you have some information. Now, against this information, you implemented some hash algorithm like MD5 is one of the hash algorithm. I will discuss on this MD5, SHA later in our discussion. Just for an example, that MD5 message digest 5 is one of the hashing algorithm. So we'll implement hashing algorithm and it will generate a hash value, unique hash output. Whenever there is any change in the information, we will do the calculation again to check is the hash is the same what we calculated previously. If both hashes are same, it means there is no any change in the information. But if any single string is changed in the entire documentation, no matter how long that documentation is, then the entire hash will be different. And if it is not same, it means the information has changed here. Definitely, it is an indication that your information is compromised, changed without your permission. And in such case, you have to, you can't trust on this information for the process, right? Yeah, we have some other examples as well, like Ben is also giving in the chat here, the PKI implementation and others. But again, that is some of the advanced tool which I don't want right now for the discussion, which might get confused here. Okay, but yes, hashing right now, just for now, understand that hashing is one of the tool and some hashing algorithms available, like MD5, one of them I told, SHA is another example we can actually use, right? Apart from that, the third thing which security is going to focus on is the availability. And what exactly availability is concentrating on? Availability is concentrating on the information or the asset should be available whenever it is required for the business or for the organization, right? I mean, take an example. I have a website and it is not working when I'm actually trying to access it. There is a shopping website, and that shopping website is not accessible for me whenever I'm trying to access. So it's the information is not available. In such case, I'm not able to do the business, right? So availability is basically making sure that your information should be available whenever it is required for the processing. There is a multiple way through which the availabilities issues can possible. Like attacker is actually intentionally sending some malicious data to attack on your server. Let's take an example. You have a server, right? This is a web server might be. And that web server is actually being attacked from multiple traffics coming from the internet. I'm talking about might be attacker is sending some fake traffic to the web server. So web server is busy in responding those fake traffic. So when the legitimate user is trying to come, because web server is busy in responding those fake traffic, legitimate user may not able to connect and access the information. Now this is basically one of the situation of DOS, denial of service, okay, where fake request has been sent. But remember, denial of service or unavailability issues can possible not only because of the attack, but because of some accidental events as well. Take an example, your hard drive crashed, right? Your STD hard disk drive had crashed. Now, if the hard disk is crashed, what will happen here? You are not able to access your information. Simple, right? So this is the another example of denial of service where your information is not available. Similarly, you can take any other example as well. Like take an example, your server is having, you are running web server with only one server and you have a huge traffic coming from the customers. Take an example of Amazon Black Friday sale. On that day, Amazon is actually expecting a very huge traffic on their website. But Amazon is not having more than one server. In such case, what will happen that when one web server is not able to handle that huge traffic and that may go crashed. In such case, customers are not able to connect and manage and get the relevant information what they require. This is also the situation of unavailability. Right. In such case, definitely we need to implement some control. Okay. Like we may be using some load balancer as an example, LB load balancer, which will help you to improve the availability. We may be using the failover cluster. So we are actually using a cluster of servers. One of the server is down, we can fail over to the another server, right? We may be taking the backup. So in case if my system is crashed, I have backup, I can recreate the entire server and we can go to the business, right? Another example of unavailability is the ransomware attack. Right? Your system is attacked with ransomware malware. Your all information is encrypted, and if you don't have backup, so you have only one option that you are going to pay ransom money to the attacker. Otherwise, you are going to lose your information. Right. So these are some of the example of the control which we implement for increasing the availability. But definitely we have some intentional attacks as well. For that, we have some necessary control, which we will discuss in our document section. But all in all, what we need to understand that whenever we are trying to focus on the security, we should be having a certain scope given there, right? What exactly you require me in security control? Security is a very broad area. It's not like only one component within security control we need to implement. There are multiple things we have within the security. What exactly you want that needs to be given there by my stakeholders, and accordingly only the necessary controls we will be implementing. Remember, security objective is to preserve the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That is the end objective of your security. And if you are concentrating on the CIA, at the end of the day, you are able to manage the risk, right? Risk over the asset, right? So CIA is one of the key element of the information security. Now, another important point which we need to understand here that CIA is one of the broad area, right? And to help achieve these, CI will be taking the help of IEEE. What is this IEEE? So remember, each time when I'm talking about CIA, I'm saying that authorized user must have the information access. Authorized user can only make the changes. An authorized user must have access over the information whenever he's required. So it is all about authorized and unauthorized, right? But how can we decide that who is authorized and who is not authorized, right? For that, we should have some certain information present already through which I can decide whether it's authorized or not. For that only, we have these IEEE component, right? So in case of IEEE component, what we do then, here I is basically indicating the identification channel, right? See, understand this way, you have a system, right? That system should be accessed by the authorized user. But how the system understand who is authorized user for accessing the information present in the system, right? So for that, you require some kind of database. That database will be storing the information about the authorized user. So let's suppose I'm actually using a Windows system, and within Windows system, there is a database we use that name is SAM, Security Account Manager, right? SAM database actually store the information about your users and their credentials as well. So whenever we create any user, that is actually going to be stored here. Similarly, if I'm talking about the enterprise organization utilize some sort of directory service, right? And one of the directory service which we use is based on LDAP, Lightweight Directory Accessing Protocol. So LDAP is a protocol which is used to store information about the objects. It could be the user object, it could be group object, it could be computer object, it could be anything, right? So that information you require to place somewhere, right? So can we say that first we need to have a certain mechanism through which we can store information about the objects in the database. And that is where we require the help of this identification component. So identification component of IEEE, which is helping improve the security within your organization by implementing the necessary control. Identification is one of the components through which we can identify the user by placing some necessary database for the users or the objects which you want to have secured access. But the problem is, let's suppose I had created a user in my database with the name of Raj, right? Now, how can I say that only Raj user is trying to log in my system? There is a possibility that Sam is saying that I am Raj. Sorry, I'm actually using the same term Sam here. Let me just use some different name. Let's suppose Mac is coming to access my system, and now Mac is saying, hey database, my name is Raj. Can you provide me the access of this system? So there is a complete possibility, right? Where identification is presented, falsely to the database, and then database will help you to provide the access. Right now, there is an attack actually based on that, which we'll discuss later. But yes, this information can be falsified and definitely given to the system, and system will provide you the access. So how the system will decide whether it is the correct user who's coming? So for that, they will be using some authentication mechanism. So the next component we have is A. A is basically representing authentication, right? Okay, guys, just let me know if my handwriting is okay for you all. I know sometime I'm using very bad, so just let me know if it is recognizable for you all, right? So authentication is one of the component through which you are making sure that you are able to verify the user. See, authentication is a process through which you can authenticate user. I mean, verify the identity of the user. How can you verify my identity, right? So for that, might be I'm going to show you my identification card, which is issued by the local government. right? And might be some unique token through which you can actually identify me, right? So systems utilize some password, right? Password will help you to authenticate the user. So authentication is a mechanism through which you can verify the identity of the user. So if I need to verify whether it is Raj or is trying to access my system, I will, the database will ask you, okay, if you're Raj user, tell your password, because that password either me know, either the database know or this user know. So tell me the password. If the password entered correctly, then it will say, okay, you are allowed to access. Otherwise, no, I can't give you access. This is what exactly will happen, right? So we are using authentication to verify the identity of the user. So that is the second thing which we actually require in our information system. At the same time, we also require the help of authorization. Authorization ensure that the correct user is accessing the information, and definitely he's having necessary authority over that. Within a system, there are multiple information present. Raj may not be an authorized user for accessing all the information, right? So in such case, what we'll need to understand here, that first in your system, you will be building some kind of authorization system, which is making sure that correct user is mapped against the correct information. So if Raj is trying to log in, he must be able to access certain information. And if Mac is trying to log in, he must be able to access certain information there. That it depends on the authorization system you are actually configuring. A basic example, you can simply say the ACL, access control. That is also helping you to provide the necessary authorization. Whether you can read, whether you can execute, whether you can write, that one you are actually deciding. So authorization decide whether what the user can do over the system. You don't want any other user in your system to do anything over the informations, right? That is where the role of authorization is going to come into the picture. And then last component, which is very much important within the information security world, is the accounting, or in another word, you can also use a term audit here. Accounting or audit. See, try to understand that if I'm doing something over the system, and if I'm not tracked, if I am not being audited, what will happen? I can do anything, even the wrong activity as well. And I'm not accountable for that action. Why? Because no one is actually watching me what I'm doing. In such case, what will happen? That attacker or can do anything, and because they are not watched, there is no any evidence through which you can prove a certain activity has been conducted by a certain user. And in such case, definitely it is a very bad activity, because you can't take any further actions. You are going to take action based on, some of the data which you have there. Because of the lack of data, you can't do the same, right? This is what exactly going to happen. So audit will bring the accountability within your system. So to support CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, you require some sort of identification database. You require some authentication mechanism, and some example you can take is Kerberos is one of the authentication protocol, which is also a single sign-on base. Now, what is the single sign-on? That is our discussion of the identification topic. I mean, there is a separate domain we have for the discussion. But Kerberos, for now, try to remember, Kerberos is a protocol which will help you to do the authentication, which also offers single sign-on capability. It means once you're signed in, you don't need to authenticate again and again to access multiple information over the system. Then we require authorization, some sort of ACL is an example of the authorization. Remember, before authorization is done, we require some sort of entitlement table where you will define a role and the information that role is able to access. So this mapping of a role over the asset is actually called as an entitlement process. This is one of the very, very important security activity we have to do to make sure only authorized user is able to access the information. And then definitely some sort of audit. Audit, for the audit only, nowadays we use some specialized tool like SIM, Security Information and Event Management. One of the example you can take is a Splunk, is one of the SIM tool. QRadar, another very good tool. And if you are a fan of open source tool, then Waju. Now this is one of my favorite because it's open source. There is no any licensing required. And second thing, I can make the changes according what I required, which mostly in the license based tools is very tough for me to implement that. But again, that these all are basically the tool which will help you to conduct the proper audit because you are monitoring each of the services within your organization. And if you have a proper data, definitely that data will help you to take the action quickly. Because these tools are not only the detection tool, these are also helping you to do the orchestration. So this is the reason these tools are also known as SIM, and then one more activity added here, that is SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automated Response, right? These are basically some of the tools which will help you to do the enhanced EDR capability. But again, that is the discussion about later on.
Which is the third one actually? I didn't get
Waju, Waju.
Sorry?
It is Waju.
Watch. Okay.
Yeah, Waju. It's an open source SIM tool which you can implement in your organization. Okay, great. Although we have other tools as well, you might be using Ali and Vault. This is another tool which you can utilize for the same. Okay. So I hope now you are able to understand the relationship between the security and the IEEE component, why exactly IEEE is required for our implementation there, right? Now coming to more, some of more key terms which we need to remember before we discuss on some relationship with management and these controls which we are actually working here. Right now, one important thing which I want to discuss here before I move on some security management concepts is the defense in depth concept. Now, try to understand. You have a certain asset which you're trying to protect, right? Now, this asset might be very, very much critical for the organization goal. See how exactly we are measuring criticality of over the asset is based on the impact. Think about a situation where there is a building where there is no any human beings present. No human being, right? Only digital systems available, right? And there is another building which is full of human beings, right? Now both building catches fire, right? Now they have fire issue, right? Now it is the criticality which decide which one you are going to recover first. Now let's suppose you have limited resource and you can only fix only one issue at a time. Then it is the criticality which will decide which needs to be fixed first. Okay. So remember, in our security world, we always give precedence to the human beings. And definitely it is very much obvious as well. If there is any harm to the human being, it is irreparable mostly, not recovered very easily, right? So you are going to recover the building which is full of human being, and then after you are going to concentrate on another. Right? This is what about the criticality. Think about a situation that there's a government organization whose sensitive information about the country is compromised, right? So that government organization information is very critical. Why? Because based on the information, entire country can be in problem. Correct. So we are actually measuring this issue criticality based on the number of users are getting impacted because of the attack. If the number of users getting impacted is more, so definitely the criticality is also high here. Right? This is how exactly one example I had given you through which we can measure the criticality over the asset. Right? Now, if the information or the asset is critical for the organization, in such case, what we do, we are going to take necessary care. So for that, you will be implementing what? Security control. But now tell me, is one control is enough for me to implement? I mean, if the information is that much of critical, is one control is enough to implement? So think about this circle is actually one of the control. So if the information is pretty much critical for the organization, then one control might not be sufficient for you. In such case, you will be implementing more than one control. Think about a situation or take an example of airport. So when you're trying to board to the airplane or you're trying to take the flight, sorry, you may have to pass through multiple scans, multiple phases you have to pass. You have to show up your tickets, you have to show up your passport, you have to scan your luggages, then your boarding pass, multiple things. And then take another example of a shopping mall, where in a shopping mall there might be multiple entry gates available. But on each of the entry gate, there is only one guard available. After you pass this check, now you can roam around the entire shopping mall. There is no any check, further check is actually going on, right? So this is basically the one layer of security on the airport, where when you're trying to board the flight, you have to pass through the multiple phases there. Now, this is basically the example of defense in depth, where you have critical information and one control is not sufficient to provide you the necessary care. So you are implementing more than one control. What is this control is all about? So this control is helping you to minimize the risk, right? Minimize the risk. So remember, control can be a process, control can be a tool, software based tool, control can be a hardware based tool, which will helping you to minimize the risk. What is risk? We had already discussed. Okay, risk is basically the possibility of an event impacting the asset, right? Or the combination of vulnerability and threat only. So with the help of control, we are trying to minimize the risk. Either we are working on to the vulnerability or we are working on the threat itself. So all in all, I must say here that if there is any risk over what? Over asset, then risk can be eliminated by putting necessary control. Okay. Risk can be eliminated by putting necessary control. Now, am I making the right statement? No. Remember what I'm saying here, risk can be eliminated by putting the control. See, when I use this term eliminated, this is little bit controversial term. Why exactly? Let me explain. See, when you say eliminate, it means the risk will not come again, right? So is it really possible? I mean, do you know any control that if you implement, the attack will not happen again? No, actually no, right? Even if you implement the control, chances are there that the system is going to be attacked. So is that control is really eliminating the risk or minimizing the risk? So actually the correct term is minimizing the risk, not eliminating. No any control will give you the guarantee to eliminate the risk. They are just going to minimize the risk. Okay, I will give you an example. Let's take an example that you know that there is a chance of fire in the building, right? So to eliminate that chances, what you do? You are implementing a fire extinguisher, right? So fire extinguishers you had placed in the building. So if there is any fire, I will use that extinguisher to remove that fire. But is it okay? Means after that, are you okay that yes, the fire will not come back again? The chances are there even after that, right? Even after that, chances are there. And again, it's a kind of reactive control. If the fire, I will use that. But might be damage is already done. So if you place the control and if damage is still there, then is that control is really working? But yes, the further damage can be minimized if you implement the fire extinguisher. The further damage, the severe damage can be actually minimized. That is what I'm saying. So even after the fire extinguisher, you are actually purchasing what? Insurance. Why exactly? Because you know that even after I place the fire extinguisher or water sprinkles in the building, chances are there that damage over my assets is possible. So let's purchase the insurance. So if there is any damage, I will claim for that, right? So this is what exactly we do. So can we say that here I had implemented more than one control? So yes, I actually directed the control to some third party as well, right? So try to understand always that if you are implementing control, the control is used to minimize the risk. It will not help you to completely eliminate the risk. 100% risk mitigation is not possible. No any control is actually giving you such much guarantee. Even you purchase a very costly control, okay, it's not possible so far. I mean, it might be in the future something may come, but so far there is nothing like that. Okay, so now let me just correct this sequencing. So we have a risk and now we will be implementing the control. But how can we decide to implement the control? I mean, how can I implement the control? Because I don't know how much damage control I need to do, how much risk is there. I'm not aware about. So which control is going to be best? How do I know? See, when you're saying that I'm going to implement a firewall or security information and event management tool or antivirus, how exactly you're deciding that this control is going to be the best for you? Remember, when you purchase this control, there is a cost associated with this control, right? At the end of the day, your management will ask you question, what is the cost of this control? And what is the risk you are facing? So if I'm facing $100 of risk because of the compromise, and if I'm purchasing $500 of control, that doesn't make sense because I'm not generating any value to the organization, right? See here the difference. You are spending $500 to protect $100, right? So are you really saving something for the organization? No, na. So are we generating any value? No. So we need to actually show this value there. So how can we decide which control is actually best? Because I cannot go randomly select a control and then implement it. No, that is not a good thing, right? I have to actually decide the proper control based on some calculation. So whenever there is a risk, the first thing you will do is the risk analysis, right? You will be doing the risk analysis, which is, you can also use a term here, risk assessment. So you will be now doing the risk analysis. Risk analysis will help you to understand the impact of risk over the asset, right? So this impact, so far I told that there is an impact which will decide whether I need to implement control now or it is going to wait some time. But how can this impact will calculate? So for that only we are doing the risk analysis or risk assessment. Now this risk analysis can be done by two ways. One is called as qualitative way, qualitative, and another is called as quantitative. Quantitative. So quantitative means using some numerical figure, some numerical value, and qualitative is subjective. Now let me just give you some example. Qualitative. Take an example. I know that if there is any attack, onto the banking firm, let's suppose there is a bank, okay, and there is an attack. Now, because of the attack, definitely banks had might lost some money. Let's take an example. There's some money compromise there or whatever. But think about a situation if this information is leaked to the public domain. What will happen? So if it came to me, then it is actually a quite negative thing for me because I'm also saving my money into this bank. Right? If I get this information that this bank is compromised by the attacker and there's still that much of money, now this is actually a very, very risky situation for me to invest my money into the bank. I mean, save that my money into the bank, right? So now it is actually going to create a negative perception over for that particular bank in my mind, right? And this is actually going to not going to be a good for any of the organization. If you lose faith or confidence, specifically if customer is not having confidence on you and they had seen such incident, then this is actually going to create a negative impact. See, if some certain money is compromised, that is recoverable, right? You know that okay, 1 million of money is compromised. Now this one I need to now recover it. They can actually do some hard work and get in that. But if that perception is went wrong to the customer mind, then that is basically very much tough to get it on. Right. So you cannot calculate such things in numerical figure. I mean, how can you calculate the customer confidence to your organization, right? It's not possible. Not exact figure you will get there. So these are the subjective value, right? So qualitative analysis we are doing for such subjective risk there, right? So this is one example. So we are doing, and for that generally we use some high level terms like high, risk is medium, risk is low, something like that. So if customer is getting impacted, might be I'm going to give the rank here high. If only a certain process is impacted, might be I'm going to give a risk as medium. And if certain information which is not having any benefit to the organization, if that is compromised, then risk is low. And based on that, definitely I'm going to take the action. So why I'm actually doing this ranking, because I need to take further action based on the issue. So if the risk is high, get it done quickly. Make sure not happening. Medium might be wait for some time, and low, okay, even if I don't take action, that is okay. So risk analysis will help us to prioritize the thing, right? So one example I given, another example for the qualitative analysis. I mean, how can we do the analysis? So one example I can give you. There is there are actually multiple value you can use. One of the simple we can say is the question answer session, right? See, I think about a situation in an organization. Someone from the senior management team is creating very big issues to the organization. I mean, employees are not happy because of that management, one of the management team member, right? Now, organization came to know, the stakeholders came to know, so they decided to have analysis to find out and fix the issue. Now, no any employee within an organization specifically is ready to provide such frank feedback there, right? Might be, I'm not saying for every people, but yes, most of them I had seen that they're not ready to complain directly in front of anyone. So in such cases, what will happen? They will do a question answer. They will ask you actually indirect questions there, right? They will try to understand your perception over the organization, what exactly you are getting an issue, what was the proper issue. Again, not a direct question, but some with some indirect questions formed there and then given there, and then getting the anonymous feedback from there, or anonymous answers from there. Now, panel will analyze and will decide whether need to take action now or not. So question answer is one of the example we can take. Another example is the survey. You can also do survey to understand the risk. I mean, let's suppose I'm not a technical guy. I came to know that a virus could be a big issue for my system. So what I'll do, I will go to the internet and also check some survey report for the different kind of threats, right? Which is already present, or might be I will conduct a survey. I just open up all over the Facebook or Twitter. I will check and will post a question. I will try to understand, okay, what was the response given there? Virus is the big threat, or ransomware is a big threat, or might be denial of service is a big threat. So they will actually give a poll, and based on that, might be I will be taking some action, right? So this could be a different examples we can take within the qualitative analysis where we try to understand the problem. Because if I know the threat, if I know the problem, definitely I can take the action more precisely, right? But again, is it sufficient? Because see, whatever I'm saying for now is basically using some subjective value, which could not be very much accurate, right? And definitely if it is not accurate, it might not be good thing for us here, right? So this is all about the qualitative. So any question guys here so far to let me know? Anything which is guys? Any question? No any question, right? Okay, great. I think the session got extended here and there is a need of break here. I can't see any voices. Sorry,
We
hear
are
any
here.
voices. Yeah, I know that. I know that you all are here. So let's take a break here, guys. Just because it's initially few things are a little bit theoretical, but it's very much important for you need to understand. So let's not make it boring. Let's take a break here. And after the break, we will continue our discussion on the quantitative as well. Again, a 10-minute short break. After that, we'll continue. Okay, guys. So 10 minutes. Thank you. See you after the break. Welcome back, everyone. I hope we all are back.
Rajeev, one small query. See, when I am considering to put a control now, I have two web service. Okay, one web service has so much of vulnerabilities, but it is hosted internally within an organization. Whereas I have one more web service which is hosted externally, but it has a less threat. Now, when I am considering the controls, which one I need to prioritize? The one which is exposed outside of the organization, consider having less threat, or the one which I having more threats, but it is hosted inside the organization. Which one I need to choose?
Now you need to decide here what exactly you are giving the threat. See, try to understand one important thing. The threat is not always coming, or the attacker is not always coming from the outside network. Okay. In fact, there was a recent survey conducted. And according to that survey, most of the threats is basically the internal only. Attacker know that they are not able to reach to most of the, critical asset or the services is actually placed internally. Right. So if the vulnerability is more there, see, it is all about the vulnerability and the exposure factor. I mean, how much damage you will be getting it. So if you feel that your internal server damage chances are more, so in such case, definitely you to prioritize there because you have critical assets placed on that server, and that one needs to be decided first to be rectified. And if it, even if it is external, that you're saying that is not so much critical, right? So criticality actually decide the amount of control which we need to place there. Okay, so let's move on to the another discussion here. So as I told that we have qualitative analysis, right? And as I told that qualitative analysis will help you to understand the issue from some of the subjective figures which we actually utilize there, right? And definitely accordingly the necessary controls needs to be implemented. And multiple way we have multiple examples we have which we can actually utilize. It could be a certain scenario also which we are discussing. Delphi technique, this anonymous feedback method is actually called as the Delphi technique as well. But the same.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I have a question, please. Can you also use the buff analysis, or you can choose to do just one of the two kind? Or how can we choose the analysis, quantitative analysis, or the quantitative one?
Okay, so your question is basically how can we choose which one we go for, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, right? So that is what your question is.
Yes.
Yeah. See, try to understand this important factor here. So far, I had not, told that I'm going to use only qualitative or quantitative, right? I'm just right now, so far, my statement was that there are two type of analysis, qualitative and quantitative. And in fact, for an organization who is really trying to implement the control, it is very much important for them to implement both of them. And the first analysis you will do is qualitative. Okay, and then you will be passing it to the numerical value. It means you try to understand mostly with qualitative analysis, you will be able to find the relevant threats, right? So this analysis will help you to understand the threat. And this information you will be passing it to the quantitative analysis to get a certain numerical value. I mean, the amount of loss you will be facing because of the risk. And based on that, you will be implementing the control. But even after that, coming to your question, that how exactly we should decide that which one we going for. So if you remember, I told that if the numerical calculation over the risk is tough for you, like organization reputation, how can you put a number I'm trying to say, how can you put a specific numerical value to the organization reputation if it is at risk? Let's suppose, as I told, if I had given you an example, if an organization is compromised and if this information is leaked to the public domain, then the risk is actually at the organization reputation. Their reputation is going to be in question. So how can you put a numerical figure there, right? So there, that time we will using some subjective value, right? So wherever the numerical value is tough to put, we will try to utilize the qualitative analysis only, right? In fact, nowadays, is we are actually using this qualitative figures to decide to implement the control. Let me tell you one very important example here. I'm not sure that how many of you are using already cloud, but Microsoft Azure, right? So Microsoft Azure is basically the one of the cloud vendor who offer the cloud services. Microsoft Azure is offering you identity and access management service, and for that they are using uh, Azure AD, Azure Active Directory. Okay, within Azure Active Directory, there is a service available that is user risk management. User risk management. Now, what is this? See what exactly Microsoft is doing. Microsoft is taking all the different type of data from their different products. Even, Microsoft is having one gaming console as well, Xbox. So even from there, I'm not taking only one that example, but all the other products. So even from Xbox console, they're actually taking data for the different type of risk which normally customers or consumers are facing. They are analyzing, and then based on that, they are actually maintaining a list of risk for the users, right? Let's take an example, just like one example they are using, um, impossible reachability. Now, what is this impossible reachability? Let's take an example. You are right now in India, and suddenly your login attempt has been detected from, somewhere from Australia. It means your first login attempt just 1 minute back isn't from India, and your second login attempt just after 5 minutes back from Australia. Now, it is not possible for a user to reach from within this time interval from here to here. Okay, so now this data Microsoft use to flag this user activity as risk. It means they will flag that this user is at risk, but they will put this risk as a medium risk. Why? It could be high risk as well because there might be their account is compromised, but they will put it as a medium risk because we know that nowadays we are using VPN tools as well. And might be users are using some VPN tool to reach out from there. So based on that, it will flag the user at risk, medium risk, they will flag. And now it is your responsibility to take action. See, action is the at the hand of customer, right? But Microsoft only flag a risk data for you. Here it is a medium risk. Right? So even nowadays, the tools are utilizing this qualitative data to alert you that there's some bad activity going on. So take some action. Otherwise, it is going to be too late. But all in all, why exactly we are using qualitative? Because we cannot assign a numerical figure there, right? And that is the reason we are using qualitative values. So organization reputations is one of the perfect example for the same. But as the session progresses, I will give you some more examples to understand it better. I hope you're getting a point.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now the next thing is quantitative value. See, once we have some certain threat, and for that I'm going to use my experienced users. Now, one of the example under the qualitative analysis is the feedback from your experienced user. A user who is actually working in the same domain from the last 10 to 15 year or 20 year or 25 year, they must be they must have worked on multiple scenario and then they have proper exposure over the service or over that scenario. So you will be also taking feedback from them and then you're taking some action, further action here, right? So from your experienced users, after you will be taking their feedback and you will try to check some threads and use those inputs in quantitative analysis to calculate the exact issue or the exposure. How exactly it works? Let me just put it here. So think about a situation that you have one of the asset which you are trying to protect is your operating system. Now remember, I can take any of the another example. I'm just taking one simple example so we all can understand very easily. So one of your asset is your operating system on which you are, with the help of that, you are actually taking this session, right? Let's take an example. Right now, this operating system get crashed. So now there is for a certain amount of period of time, you're not able to join this session. And because of that, this interruption will come for you, right? Definitely is a kind of risk for you. Yeah, right. But it could be any other thing. Like let's suppose take an example in an operating system you have, there is a virus attack or there is a ransomware attack, right? That is also used to provide some damage. So asset is operating system. Now this asset is having certain value for you, right? So now we need to check what is the value this asset is actually generating for my organization or for me, right? See, asset value, I can simply calculate like operating system cost. Let's suppose I purchase this operating system license is $300. I'm just taking an example. It could be cheaper or it could be more expensive than. It could be $300 plus information which you are placing on this operating system, like your some organization documentation, your personal pics, some messages, even that one too is there in the operating system. Might be if we do some calculation, like take an example, if you lost that data because of the operating system crash or virus attack or ransomware attack, okay, you are losing additional $500 because that information might be that much of useful. But again, it is very tough to say that how much that information is valuable for you. So let me just eliminate this right now. I'm not using this one. Let's take an example of the purchasing cost. But remember, in real world, we also consider the value of information for the organization. Let's take an example. I have a project data, right? And that system is crashed or encrypted because of the ransomware attack. And because of that, I'm not able to proceed to the project. So how much value that project is creating for the organization might be you can use that value and then add it up here. So instead of this operating system, you can also say there is a server, which is an asset for you, where you place your all data, right? Just a scenario I had given there. It could be very broader, could be very, very small. So asset value, I'm just taking a purchasing cost, but it could be the information which is placed on the server. Now, if this asset is compromised, okay, then definitely there is a damage. So now the next thing we have to check here, what is the threat? And now how can you get this value? What is the threat? So for that, you are taking the help of qualitative analysis. Just a few minutes back, I told that your experienced users will be giving you feedback that what is the threat this operating system may. See, if I'm a non-technical guy, and if someone asks me, what is the threat which this operating system may have? I might not be aware about the virus attack. I might not be definitely aware about the ransomware attack. Okay. I'm there in the security domain, so I might be using this term or hearing this term and working on this term on a regular basis. But if I'm non-technical guy, I may not be aware about. So if you're going to ask such questions to your non-technical guys, definitely they don't have any information about the same. But your experienced users can tell that yes, there is a threat, virus, right, or ransomware, or some malware, other malware, right? So this is one of the threat we got here, right? Now, what is the impact of the threat, right? I mean, now we need to calculate the exposure factor. Exposure factor is what? What is the chances? What is the probability of this threat is getting realized against my asset? See, I know that virus can attack on the system. Now I need to check what is the chances of this threat is getting exposed or getting, realized against my asset. And again, based on the qualitative analysis. See, normally organization maintain risk register where they actually maintain some threat which they had already faced, damage what that threat has actually given in the past, right? Correct. Even the log4j has been recently detected against the Apache, right? So now this one, we need to check it out here. So this register we actually maintain, that is called as the risk register, where we also maintain some threat information. Now, based on the previous activity, you will be putting a certain percentage, right? And that percentage, you actually put it under the exposure factor. So exposure factor define what is the percentage, what is the chances of this threat is getting realized against my asset. Based on the previous data, again, we don't have any data right now here, so we cannot say, but definitely based on the previous data or your experienced user calculation, you tell that might be a 20% chance, 30% chance, 40%, or might be 100% chance, right? Could be anything. Let's take an example. I'm just putting one random value here, 30% chances. So there is a 30% chance that virus may attack my operating system, right? Now, based on this value, we need to, before we calculate, there is one more value we need to actually check it out. The value is called as rate of occurrence. Annually, how many times this threat will actually realize against my asset? So this is the exposure factor, means what is the percentage of this threat is getting realized? Now, how many times this is going to be repeated? Again, based on your previous 5-year data might be, you will take, and based on that, you will provide some average value, right? So that is called as rate of occurrence. In short, ARO, annual rate of occurrence. So again, because again, it is based on the previous value we'll put, I'm here putting some random value like 5 times. Let's suppose 5 times it is actually getting realized in 1 year. Right. Now these values will help me to calculate two important values. First is called as SLE. That is called single loss expectancy. So what is this single loss expectancy? If the threat is realized against the asset, what is the one-time loss I will be facing? So one-time loss calculation is going to be asset value into exposure factor. Asset value, which is $300, exposure factor, which is 30%, right? So this will actually provide me the one-time loss, right? So what is going to be value? So if you calculate now, you will see 300 into 30 divided by 100, right? This is what it means. One-time loss is going to be $90. But based on one-time loss, you will be not making a decision to implement the control, right? It could be very less for you. So now you have to check what is the annual loss we are actually facing because of this. So now we calculate ALE, that is called annual loss expectancy. So ALE's formula is SLE times ARO. So single loss expectancy we have got here $90, and ARO, rate of occurrence, is 5 times. So 90 into 5. So annually, I will be losing $450. See, this number is very less here right now, definitely. But in an enterprise organization, even if you take only operating systems, you may not have only a single operating system. You may have 100, more than 100 operating systems, right? And the value associated with that is a little bit larger. I just calculated for one operating system. So with one operating system annually, I'm losing $450, right? For enterprise, this calculation is going to be a little bit complex as well, and definitely because of the number of assets involved. But all in all, this is how the formulae works. This is how the quantitative risk analysis we do. So if you see here, after this analysis calculation, we got an annual loss expectancy. It is expected to lose $450 in a year. And based on this, we need to decide which control will be the best option for us. I hope I'm making sense here, guys. Do let me know if there is any question so far.
While calculating these values now, we will consider only the old data or any other factors like, for example, if similar organizations also facing the same issue, but so far in our organization it's not seen, will we still consider that as a critical or not?
Yeah, definitely we can. Means, see, if the organization is having similar kind of operations, see, this operating system issue is a common thing. I mean, across all the organization, operating system based attack, you can consider the same way. But other risk, if you calculate, like financial organization will be having the different and separate classification of risk. And different category of organization, we have the different category of risk as well. So in such case, yes, similar kind of organization risk you can take and calculate, because definitely we learn from the neighbors mistakes as well, or our elders mistakes as well, right? And we'll try to take actions accordingly. So definitely we will take similar kind of incident which has taken place in the similar kind of industry, and then we will try to incorporate here as well. Remember, survey is also one of the example I told under the qualitative analysis to do that, which will help you to understand the issues. And that definitely that survey can be from the anonymous user as well. Like I had seen multiple times on feedbacks getting posted onto the LinkedIn about the issues, and we actually learn, or some websites, information security website where you subscribe, they will get the notification about the recent issues coming it out there. So if definitely we will be learning from them. If you had not faced the attack, like if you had not faced the log4j threat so far in your organization, it doesn't mean that you will be not facing in the future, right? It is because you just so far you are a luckier person because you not being that not being attacked, but definitely it is possible. So we should take proactive action to resolve the issues, right? Okay, so I hope the calculation is clear for you all, guys. Remember, this calculation may be asked in your examination, like this formula SLE. So SLE is basically asset value into exposure factor, and ALE, annual loss expectancy, is SLE times ARO. Right? So this can be asked in your examination. So make sure this formula you are remembering. A scenario they will not ask, means 6 to 7 years back might be had given the examination, might be such calculation they're asking. But from the last 3 to 4 years, I have not seen any question which is coming from the scenario. So might be this calculation you can be relaxed, right? Okay. So what we got here is the loss, annual loss, right? Now try to understand what we should do. So after the risk assessment, what we got? We got the loss, how much we are going to lose. Now we need to decide which control will be the best suitable option here. Right? Let's take an example that you are investigating a control against the antivirus, right? And you got two options. Sorry, you are actually trying to investigate the issues against the virus. Antivirus is one of the solution might be you are going for, right? And the another solution we might be going for IPS, intrusion prevention system. Right? It could be more than that, right? Antivirus, IPS, or any other tools as well. Now this to control I'm using just to compare which can be the best option. Now antivirus might be costing you $100 for the year license, right? IPS is a heavy tool, right? So if you're going to purchase a good IPS tool here, then in such case it might cost you more than $1,000. I'm just keeping it $1,000 for our reference here. Now we need to decide which control will be the best option. Now, when you're selecting the control, there are two rules you have to remember. Rule one, your control should not be exceeding the asset value. Should not exceed asset value. So our asset value is how much? $300. So our control cost should not exceed the asset value. So if you follow this rule, IPS is not going to be the good option because it is exceeding the asset value. Our asset is operating system, and we had just seen the calculation that it was $300. Second rule is your control cost should not exceed ALE as well, annual loss expectancy. So what is my ALE? $450. And again, according to the second rule as well, IPS is not a suitable option. So according to both of the rule, we need to select a control. And here in our case, antivirus is going to be the best option here for now. Remember, IPS can be the good option if my asset value could be larger, or you can say greater, and ALE is also greater. And definitely in an organization, you are not calculating risk against only single asset, but multiple asset, which is similar kind of, right?
Here one question.
Yeah, Mr. Umesh.
For example, that asset value is very less, but the asset position, it's a very critical. So for example, that industry is in a nuclear reactor and they are using inside the nuclear reactor, they are using some assets. Its value is very less. But that
Then you
asset
are
is very important.
then
In that case is what we will do.
then you are definitely in such case ALE will increase, right? Annual loss expectancy will increase because when you do the overall calculation, see, ALE is actually going to check your overall impact as well, right? So definitely in such case, that will increase. Remember one thing which I had not calculated yet. I had told you in the earlier section on during discussion that right now I'm just taking the purchasing cost. But did I calculated the value which is generating the kind of information this operating system is processing? No, but definitely that one too you are going to include. Let's suppose this operating system is keeping some sensitive information about the organization, like some project information or some your sensitive personal informations. So even that one too you calculate, no? So if you purchase a nuclear, some kind of component there, so definitely the purchasing cost could be lesser, but the kind of data it is processing, it is too sensitive for you or for organization or for country. So in such case, that data you are going to calculate here. And in such case, definitely the asset value increased. So as to ALE as well. Are you getting a point?
Yes, yes.
For the simplicity, I had just taken the purchasing cost. But again, it is just for the entire calculation understanding. But remember, it is the value, it is the kind of information it is processing. Even that one too, you have to keep it in the calculation. Okay. So as I told that in this case, antivirus could be the best solution here because of this both rule. So let's take an example. You decided to implement this antivirus. So if you're implementing antivirus, which is what? Which is a control. What this control will do? So this control will help you to minimize the risk. Right? It is going to minimize the risk. If it is minimizing the risk, okay, then tell me what is going to be impacted most here. If I'm implementing the control, is it going to impact the ALE most? Is it going to impact the ARO most? Is it going to impact the exposure factor most, or it is going to impact the SLE most? Now this is the question for you guys. If I'm implementing control, what is going to be impacted most? I hope
exposure factor will get reduced.
Exposure factor, you are saying that it is get reduced. Okay, one vote here. What about others?
Yeah.
Rate of occurrence will be impacted most. Okay. Sorry. What other guys, please participate here. What is going to be impacted most? Mr. Manoj Murli, Mr. Vardhan, provide your inputs here.
The EF for me.
Exposure factor, one more vote. Okay, so let's not wait for more. So for now, try to understand the most is going to impact it is the rate of occurrence. Now, why exactly? Try to understand. See, when you implement the control, is it going to impact the exposure factor? No, no. See, try to understand. Exposure factor we had calculated based on what? Based on our previous data, might be 30% chances, right? Or 40% chances. That's it. Yeah. So it is not going to change. Even if you implement the control, it is still the same because you're taking it based on the previous date value. But if you implement the control, the most will be change is rate of occurrence, annual rate of occurrence. See, previously it was hitting you 5 times, right? But now because you have the antivirus, might be it is going to hit only 2 times because you have the necessary control. So only the new viruses may get introduced here. See, if I implement the antivirus tool, definitely it is going to kill the viruses. But there is a possibility that my antivirus database don't have any signature through which it can detect the new virus. There is a complete possibility. Why? Because it might be you had not updated the antivirus. Might be your antivirus vendor has not detected that virus yet, so they had not created any signature. Right. So such situation may possible. So previously if it is just 5 times, now might be it is reduced to 2 time or 1 time. Right. Now if it is reduced to 2 time, right? So definitely, so previously our SLE was $90. So now if I calculate the ALE, so our formula was SLE times ARO. So 90 into, and previously it was 5 times, now it is 2 times. So 90 to 2, which is 180, right? So previously I was losing $450, and now after implementing the control, I'm losing how much? I'm losing $180. Now this will help you to understand the value the control is producing to you. How can we calculate the value of the control? So if you try to calculate the value of the control, so you will be using one value, ALE before control implementation. So ALE before implementation of control was 450. ALE after implementing the control, which is 180 minus 180 and minus cost of the control, right? So formula is ALE before implementing the control, ALE after implementing the control minus cost of the control. Now if you calculate here, so 450 minus 180 is 270 and minus 100 is 170. Now what is this? This is how much you are actually saving. So previously you were losing $450, but after implementing the control, you are saving 170. So this is the value the control is generating for the organization. This much of money you are able to save after implementing the control. And this is what the management is interested to see, how much value this control is generating for the organization. If it is saving something, it is good. But if it is not, definitely. I mean, let's suppose instead of antivirus, I'm using IPS. So it was how much? 1000. So definitely this value is going to be in minus. So you're not saving something, but you're actually losing more, right? So IPS could not be the correct solution here. So this is how exactly we can calculate the value of control for the organization. Okay. So this is how exactly the quantitative analysis we do.
That rate of occurrence when we are talking about now, that
Hmm.
means it is not the number of times sitting on our organization. It is the successfully exploit of the threats when it is occurred. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
We are expecting that 5 times it will hit, right? But
Okay.
now
Okay.
it is going to reduce to 2 times after implementing the control.
So number of times we are not calculating, only the successful impact we are considering when you are.
Yeah, definitely. Because that successful impact is only going to provide you the correct figure, no? That how
Right.
much you're actually losing. Yeah. Okay, so coming forward here, so what we had did so far, so we have a certain asset. That asset was having some vulnerability, and for that, and definitely there is a threat, and we had done then after a risk analysis, which will help us to analyze the risk which this vulnerability and threat will produce against the asset. So we had done the AL, you know, overrun analysis, right? Now this analysis had given us the impact, right? And now this impact will help us to implement the correct control against the risk. So this impact will help us to implement the control. Why we are implementing control? So we can minimize the risk over the asset. Now the question is how many different types of controls are actually available around us. Right? Remember, again defining control is the tool which could be a process, could be a software based tool, or could be a hardware based tool, which is helping us to minimize the risk. Now this control can be of, over and all, if there is a risk, the control can be of 3 types. But before discussing about the control, we need to understand one important thing, that whenever the risk is, what you're doing, you are giving the response. If the risk is there, then you will do the response. There are 4 categories of response you can give. One of the major category of response is mitigation. So whenever there's a risk, you will do the risk mitigation response. Risk mitigation means you will mitigating the risk or implementing the control to minimize the risk. So under the mitigation, we are implementing control. Okay. But when I discuss about the other type of response, so apart from the mitigation, you might be accepting the risk. So this is the another response you can give. Now, what do you mean by acceptance of the risk? There is a complete possibility that risk which you are facing is under your risk appetite. Now, what is this risk appetite now? So risk appetite is the acceptable amount of risk which you can digest easily. Let's take an example. An organization is facing $50 of loss. that $50 might not be a very good money for them to take some action. So like, okay, let's take the risk. There is no issue there. See, you need to understand that you cannot cure all kind of risk. So you have to understand that some risk you may not have to take, you may not have to do anything. Because if you're doing something there, then you are implementing control. And if you're implementing control, it might go beyond your limitation. I mean, the budget will exceed, which might not be the good option for you until unless you have the unlimited budget for your the implementation of run control. Of simple example to understand here. Let's take an example. There is a person who is trying to invest money in the share market. He know that if I invest money in the share market, either it will grow or he will lose the money, right? So now he need to decide how, if I have $100, how much money I can invest, right? If he's looking to invest, right? So let's suppose he decided, okay, let's invest $30 out of $100. So $30 is what his risk appetite. So even if it is lost, he will manage. Okay, so that is the risk appetite. Remember, not all organization is having the same kind of risk appetite, right? Different organization is having different type of risk appetite. Okay, so this can vary. So when I say risk acceptance, so risk acceptance actually defines the risk which I'm okay to accept. For that, I'm not doing anything, not implementing any control. Now, in what cases we go for the acceptance? Try to understand. So let's take an example. You are facing different type of risk. So this is called as total risk. Total different kind of risk which you are facing. Now to remove that risk, you are implementing control. Like you're facing a malware risk, you're facing uh, physical threats and others. Minus to remove that risk, you are implementing control, right? So total risk minus control. Now, whatever risk remains after implementing the control is called as residual risk, or also known as risk which remains after implementing the control is called as residual risk, or also known as control gap. So you can say residual risk or control gap, both are same. So you can say gap which is produced by control is called as control gap. Right. Now you are again analyzing this residual risk. Is it under your appetite? It means, is this risk you can digest? If you are not ready to digest the risk, why? Because it is beyond your limitation, then you will implement one more control here, where we actually implement defense in depth, you can say more than one control, right? But let's suppose it is under your appetite. This much risk you can digest. Now the question is, who will decide how much risk I can take? So it is the organization owners or the senior management, which normally the organization owners delegate the task to the senior management to decide how much risk acceptance they can do, right? So in the risk acceptance, it is the organization owner or the senior management decide how much risk I'm okay to accept. So if this residual risk under your risk acceptance level, then you will be going to accept this. Otherwise, you will be implementing one more control, and then after again you will do the calculation. It is under my appetite or not. If it is under the appetite, then you are accepting it. So that is the two response which we have seen. One where we implement some control for the mitigation. Another is risk acceptance. Third kind of response you can give here is called as risk transfer. Right, risk transfer. What do you mean by risk transfer? Risk transfer means you are sharing the risk to the third party. Right. Take an example. There is a fire. Yes, correct. Insurance. So you are actually, there is a fire, right? In case of fire, you are implementing fire extinguisher, but even after that, fire may come. So if you're taking insurance, whatever the damage for that, you can claim from the insurance, right? So you're actually involving third party to make sure provide some insurance in case of any damage, right? Claim money, whatever. This is called as the risk transfer, sometime also known as risk sharing. So whether you use a term risk sharing or risk transfer, that is okay. Means any one of them you can actually utilize it. Right. Now, another option we have, which right now I'm not going to discuss, but for now, just keep it in your mind that there is one more option we have that is called a risk rejection. Right. Now I will discuss it later because right now if I'm going to discuss, it might get in conflict with your risk acceptance as well. So let me come here on the rejection part later. For now, try to understand the four type of response: mitigation, acceptance, transfer, and rejection. Okay. Majorly, we are trying to implement the mitigation, and in the mitigation, we are implementing some sort of control. There are three major type category of control we have. One is called as administrative control. Administrative control. What is that? So administrative control is basically the soft control we are implementing to remove the risk. Like you are implementing policies, you are having governance, need to know, separation of duty, separation of privilege, two-person control. These all are basically the example of administrative control. Normally, administrative control is used to change the behavior of the users by enforcing a certain process or policies in the organization. We'll come up with some examples so we can understand it later. So for now, try to insight one category of control is administrative control. And simple example you can remember for now is policy, organization policy. Like organization decide, the acceptable users policy, right? Or adversarial policy within an organization. Another control is technical control. Antivirus, firewall. Remember, whether it is hardware-based firewall or software-based firewall, both case it is technical control only. Your hardware-based firewall is not used to prevent the, physical intruders, right? So it is still the technical control, sometimes also known as logical control. Logical control. And the third example is called as physical control. Remember, risk is not only about the virus, ransomwares. Risk is also when your server get compromised. Someone has taken the entire server with them, right? And if they had, definitely they can break it inside that. They can compromise the data very easily, right? So these are the different kind of risk which we may be facing it out there. So physical control includes security guards, CCTV cams, man traps, then barricades, docks. So these are the different examples of heating, ventilation, and air condition. Yeah, HVAC control also. Correct. So these are the different examples of physical control. We can actually take it out here, right? So these are the three different category of control: administrative, technical, and physical. But remember, when you are selecting a control, see whether to implement antivirus, firewall, IDS, IPS. So you are doing it based on the actions those controllers are doing. So now further on, all the control, administrative, technical, or physical, you are selecting based on the action they produce. So what are the actions? So one of the action they produce is you will be trying to prevent the issue, right? Like when you are implementing the antivirus, your goal is to prevent the virus attack. So this is called as the preventive control, right? So one of the action is preventive control. Second, you are trying to utilize the detective control. So you can detect the issue like IDS, intrusion detection system, or CCTV cam with recording is actually a detective control through which you can detect the intruder's attempt. So we have preventive, we have detective. Third kind of control we have here or control action, not control. Remember, these are the actions. We have is deterrent control. With a deterrent control, you are trying to discourage the user attempt. Like take an example, there is a message posted there. You are under the CCTV surveillance, right? So this message is basically a deterrent control. There is a complete possibility there is no any CCTV cam, but only by seeing this message, the attacker will get in attention mode, because they might think that someone is actually watching, right? So they are actually going to act as a deterrent control, right? Even CCTV itself is a deterrent control as well. Remember, CCTV with recording is going to be a detective control. But if only CCTV is there, normally who is actually sitting only in front of the CCTV monitor, display to check who is actually going in and going out? It's actually very tough, right? So CCTV itself is a deterrent control, but CCTV with recording is going to be the detective control action. Another control action could be compensative control. Compensative control. Compensating means, let's take an example. There is a firewall you placed, right? So firewall is used to filter the traffic, right? If it is a normal layer 3 firewall, in such case, it is going to filter the traffic based on IP address and port number. But it is not used to prevent the application based attack like SQL injection or cross-site scripting. These are the advanced application based attack. Then to compensate the issue this firewall is creating, you are implementing a WAF, web application firewall, right? So WAF is used to filter the application layer attack as well. So this is called as the compensative control, which is compensating the primary control issues, right? So this is called as compensative control. We have other controls actions as well, like we have uh, corrective control, to which you can correct the issue. Then we have recovery control, through which you can recover from the issue. Corrective control could be a very normal action like restarting the system. So if you reboot the system, might be the issues like suppose my system hang. I restart the system, is corrected. So that is a corrective issue, corrective action there. Recovery, if you have the backup, then it is actually the recovery control. So you can recover from the issue. So these are the different category of action which you will be selecting. Now remember, you are selecting the control based on the action what you require. So if you're selecting antivirus, your objective is to detect and prevent the issue, but primary action you require is to prevent the virus attack. In between, definitely antivirus can detect and then only they can prevent. So this is called as the detective control. Similarly, different controls we have, which is going to be. Now remember, one question you may be facing from here as well. They might give you some control and they will ask you what kind of control it is. Is it the deterrent control? Is it the preventive control or compensative control? So whenever you need to give answer for such questions, always think about the primary action of that control. Remember, antivirus can detect as well and prevent as well, but primary action of the antivirus is to prevent the attack, and that is the reason you are implementing the antivirus.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Can you give the example for the corrective control again? I didn't get that.
Corrective control through which you can correct the issue. As I had given you a very simple example, let's suppose your system hanged, right?
Okay.
So to
Okay.
correct the issue, what you will do, you might be doing the hard reboot, right? And after
Okay.
that, it will be in normal situation. So that is called the corrective control. So you can
Okay.
correct the issue.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, cool. So these are the different type of actions, guys, which we actually use. So again, in a sequence, if we have a risk, then we do the analyzation of the risk so we can check the overall impact. Based on that, we will be selecting a response. A response can be of
one question here. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Dash.
So the corrective control. So for example, so one vulnerability reported. Okay. So if you are patching, so that one is it's a corrective controller.
Yeah, definitely. That is also a corrective control. You're 3 years correcting the issue. Yeah. So yeah, so this is all about this 2 sections, guys. So now we have, I think, a fair idea about like how exactly the things work, means how exactly we are talking a security language there. So these are the different terms we actually utilize here. Now, there are different category of controls which is going to falls under each of them. There are multiple category of tools which we have here, which will help you to fix the issue and make it back in the proper situation. That one we'll discuss. But in between, remember, even after implementation of the control, there is always a risk of downtime, right? In such case, we must have with us business continuity planning. So even if the something goes wrong, we still manage to do the recovery. I mean, manage to run the business. And at the same time, one of the subset of BCP is called as disaster recovery, right? So, after this, we will be discussing on the business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning, followed with incident management. So these are the 3 important topic which we need to understand from the CISSP perspective. And after ending these 3 topics, you can say the domain number first and domain number 7. We are actually good in that. So I'm now pausing myself here only for today's session. So definitely today is the first day. I will not. Yeah, Mr. Sant, have any question?
Yeah, just curious to know, do we cover any kind of, pen test and all that in this
Yes, we
CISSP?
have.
We
We
have,
have a
right?
one domain. Yeah, we have one domain here.
Okay.
That is called security assessment and testing.
Oh, okay, right. Thank you.
So for now, because today is the first day, and remember, CISSP moreover towards the management side. I mean, they're more interested in understanding the process. So far, which I had so far, some of the discussion which I not did, like how the governance will play the role here, how exactly we do the security management planning. So these are some of the key things which we have to discuss, and how exactly this governance structure is actually needs to be decided. What is framework? How exactly it will help, and how do we do the threat modeling? These are some of the key things which we'll discuss. Hopefully tomorrow, these all things we will cover. But let's suppose how much of discussion we have. But here I'm myself. I'm pausing here. Now, if you have any question from the today's session, just let me know. I can have a do a quick recap for you. I hope the pace of the session is good for you. I mean, not
if
going
it
too
is
fast.
good for one, can you one more time, not briefly, and I have some little bit of doubt about that one is a qualitative analysis.
So what exactly now?
Actually, it is
What?
like, hmm?
Yeah, you go on, please.
That one is a risk analysis, the qualitative and the quantitative. The qualitative, can you explain once again?
Okay, so see, first thing about the qualitative analysis, I told that qualitative analysis is one of the risk analysis method, right? Now, this risk analysis, qualitative risk analysis is moreover subjective. So when I say subjective, what does it mean? It means it will help you to analyze the risk. Generally, the organization, generally we are facing in the organization process, organization objective, organization reputation, and others. Okay. So wherever we cannot assign a numerical value, or we have, it's a tough for us to assign a numerical value. Qualitative analysis is actually good for the same thing. Normally for the finance world, financial organization, or to understand the impact of a certain project. Let's take an example. We started a project. Now this project, how exactly it will be impacting the business structure and others, that one will calculate using the qualitative. Again, we cannot assign a certain numerical value, right? So in such cases, we generally use the qualitative analysis. Like take an example, a very simple example we can take here. You're working for an organization, right? Now your management has decided to check how satisfied my employees are. Okay, but definitely if my employees are happy, then my organization can actually increase, because they can provide a positive value to the organization with their work, and definitely the work culture they want. So they want to conduct a kind of um, analysis over the same, that how satisfied my employees are or how satisfied my customers are with my product. In such case, what you will do, you will send a feedback form, right? And then you will see, you will ask a question, how satisfied with our product is my product is working well, is my product is working fine, how much rating you are giving there from 1 to 10. So this will help you to understand how satisfied your customer or employee is with your product or with the organization. And this will help you to, and also you will take some inputs from them, like what we can do better to improve your satisfaction level. These are some of the simple example of the qualitative analysis which will help you to improve. Hope you got your answer.
Okay.
Also, like, just a really simple way of thinking about it is qualitative is like you take your child to the park, they go on the swing, there's a risk of them falling off the swing, obviously, but you couldn't put a number on that, so you'd have to you go, well, my child falls over all the time, so it's probably a high likelihood that they're going to fall off the swing. That would be qualitative. So think of qualitative, high, medium, and low, and quantitative as number.
Yeah. Okay. Although we will do more, examples on the same, because the whole entire book is basically on the same only. So we will come to these terms more closely. So it will be a lot more clear when we do further on discussion on that. Okay, with some more and more examples. Okay. Yeah, Raj, you have any questions? And raise your hand. Oh, okay. About the documentation, right? I mean, the information which you required for your posting. So what I'll do right now, I'm going to share you one shared directory. I had not yet uploaded the files, but just allow me an hour. I will upload all the data which you require for the further study. So I'm just creating one CISSP docs, which I will be, this doc I'm sharing with you all. Within an hour or so, you will be able to find the relevant documentations here. So let me share you the link in the chat box. Just copy it and keep it with you. It might be within a few hours you check it out. So just find the link, save it at your system, get download when it is done. I just when I finish my upload. Any question, guys? So far, anything? I hope the pace of the session is good for you all.
Yes, yes. It's good for good section. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
nice.
thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Rajeev, and the recording is also uploaded over there, correct?
Yes, yes. After finishing the session, I will no, I think for the recording, I will not do that. See, it is actually my personal account here. So what I'll do, I'm going to share you the recording directly. Yeah, so what I'll do, I'm going to share you the recording link in the same folder in this drive.google.com. So you're able to find it from here only.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it is a one more time if it is going with that same section before the next class. It's good. We will get the continuity.
Correct.
Yes, it will be really great. Actually, unfortunately, maybe tomorrow's session I'll not attend due to some urgent work. So that will be really helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. I will Recordings will be available, so I will be uploading it. Okay, guys, so I think we can pause our session here only. Tomorrow, same time, we'll start, and we'll discuss. Tomorrow's agenda is going to be on business continuity planning. Yes, same time tomorrow. Disaster and incident. So let's see. First, we'll start with incident. We are actually going to follow continuity here. First, we'll discuss what is incident. If we are not able to manage incident on time, it will convert into the disaster. Then we'll see how exactly what are the tools available for that disaster. And then definitely we'll discuss after that the business continuity planning as well.
So incident is DR and BCP. It is like that.